Okay, I'm calling the meeting to order at 6:01. This meeting is being recorded by the Economic Development Committee. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. Hearing none, I'll proceed. In accordance to a long gobbledygook Massachusetts general law, quote, no person shall address a meeting of the public body without permission of the chair, and all persons shall, at the request of the chair, be silent. No person shall disrupt the proceedings of a meeting of a public body. If, after clear warning from the chair, a person continues to disrupt the proceedings, the chair may order the person to withdraw from the meeting. If the person does not withdraw, the chair may authorize a constable or other officer to remove the person from the meeting. I hope that has put the fear of the constable in all of you. Now I'll do a roll call, God willing. Councillor Elmer, that's me, I'm here. Councillor Bullock?
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Disorder?
Here.
Thank you, Ginny. Councillor Healy? I don't
Here.
see him. Oh, he's here.
Here.
Excellent.
Yep. I'm on my phone because I'm bringing my daughter to cello. So
Okay, good. Well, cello is good. And Councillor Mayo, can you speak?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can. Excellent. Thank you all. Okay. Also present is Eric Torog. MJ Adams is going to join us later. Danny representing the mayor's office. Any members of the press here? Invited guests include the planning director, Councillor Eric Torog, Director Torog, Alex Abrams of the Heritage Collective, Christina Slocum Wisk of the planning board, the chair of the planning board in Berniston, and Sarah LaValle, assistant planner in Berniston. I'm going to follow the, we've got a lot of stuff to cover. We could get really bogged down in any of it. I think we can keep it moving though. So I'm going to take, because we don't have to vote on anything. This is all discussions. The first item on the agenda, first of all, there's no approval of minutes. I'm not sure why. We skipped our last meeting, but there was a meeting before that. I'll talk to the office about that. No public hearing, no motions. So let's go right into discussions. The first one I think we can dispense of pretty quickly. It's a zoning amendment to rezone 41 Oak Hill Road and a portion of 75 Oak Hill Road. I won't read the rest. I know it was introduced and I guess, Eric, you want to just give us quick the justification?
Sure, Councilor. Thank you for the opportunity. So this started recently with the property owner, Susan G. Fisk, approaching the planning board and asking if they would support and potentially initiate a zoning map amendment. Susan Fisk owns the lumber yard up at 75 Oak Hill Road. And so back in '89, when the wholesale rezoning occurred in the current configuration, our zoning map is what it is today with a few minor adjustments. That area, her father requested when they did the rezoning to keep it general industry. So back then in 1989, they kept it general industry. Since then, they have new thoughts and want to do some residential development. So they approached the planning board and asked if they would support and initiate this zoning map amendment, which would zone a portion of 75 Oak Hill Road, but not the portion where the lumber yard business is on. It is the same parcel, but it would be the southern portion of that parcel, as well as 41 Oak Hill Road. That's where Susan G. Fisk lives, and also the abutting property to the east. All that would be rezoned from general industry to rural residential for the purposes of residential development.
Thank you. Yeah, I spoke to the owner today because I didn't know any of the background, and that's exactly what she said. She'd like to build some housing there. She has the idea of making a community. Sounds good. We can use the housing. I didn't see any problem with this. Any councilors have any questions?
Councillor Elmer?
Sure. Go.
I spoke to Eric Torog today about this. I don't have a problem with it either. More housing is a great idea. It's a very small area of general industry, totally surrounded by RC. And we just talked about why the whole area would not go to general not go to RC, because that lumber yard would be grandfathered in. And while we're looking at it, I can tell you from being the precinct counselor in 3, that having general industry right next to housing is sometimes problematic, as in, you know, Chapman or Wells Street. So I just thought that was worth bringing up, that that business would be allowed to stay. I'm all for doing the ask, but Eric and I did talk about that today.
Right, I can see that. It's the business is sort of a specialty lumber yard, and I don't know if they're making more lumber, but they have an inventory that they're selling off, and it sounds like it wouldn't be a bad neighbor for a housing development, but I don't know. Any other thoughts? Seems like we ought to let this woman do her thing. Yeah, go ahead, Doug.
How big are the projected units? Is it 1 unit? Is it 5 units? Is it just, is it?
Go ahead, Eric.
Counselor, I can answer that. We have not received any development plans yet, other than notice that they want to do residential development there. It'd be a subdivision in the form of lots that would have to meet the requirements for a housing lot in the RC district.
Right.
Okay, let's move on. We don't have to vote on this. Next, we have the language that Ginny has proposed for controlling marijuana cultivation, defining what an indoor cultivation is. Eric has marked that up some. It's going back to the planning board. Rather than get deep into the details of this, I thought we'd use this as an opportunity to learn something about the marijuana business by people who are in it. And I've asked Alex Abrams, who's the sales director at the Heritage Collective, and also the 2 people from Berniston Government, to talk to us. I wanted to ask Alex if he could just explain what his business model is and what the town gets out of it. And then I will ask the same question about the town. If you can do it in like 2 minutes, Alex, that'd be great.
Sure, I can be brief and not offensively, but it's the Heirloom Collective.
Okay.
Heritage Hemp is it? Yeah, just to clarify for the notes. But yeah, so we are a wholesale and retail vertically integrated cannabis company operating both in the recreational and medical markets. We cultivate under about 12,500 square feet of active canopy. We have a commercial kitchen, C1D1 extraction lab, full processing capacity. Our first retail opened in Hadley, Massachusetts. That was about 3 years ago, which dispenses and sells medical and recreational cannabis. And we also wholesale to a large portfolio of other dispensaries, medical and recreational, around the state of Massachusetts. A lot of wholesale, so roughly 70% wholesale, 30% retail, but very soon to be changed by a second retail, which will be recreational only, which is opening up in Berniston actually on Thursday to the public, which is fantastic. Berniston's been great to us thus far. We look forward to working with them for quite some time to come. And we also, produce edibles, produce concentrates, etc. And hopefully that was a pretty good 2-minute synopsis of just the top down.
Okay, and what does the town get out of it?
I won't speak to the exact specifics, but we have, a host community agreement with the town of Berniston and try to also engage in philanthropic efforts as well, where we're able to. So without, getting into the specific details, there's an HCA in place to, feed back some of those profits into the town.
Is the amount that the profit gets fed back into the town, is that by a fixed formula or something that's in the host agreement? How is that structured?
So without speaking to the exact of the structure, because to be honest, I don't want to speak out of turn. There is, to my understanding, a combination of kind of an expected annual payment that, sunsets over a period of time. And I would defer, I know the Berniston representatives here could probably speak to it well. And then also a percentage as well, which is included in that for wholesale and retail. I believe it's separate.
Berniston, how does it work for you guys?
Well, I wasn't really involved in the host agreement process, but my understanding is that we are going to be well compensated over the next 5 years for the agreement, which helps our little town out. And also we have been collecting the property taxes. And of course, now with the new development, they're adding on another 40,000 square feet of grow facility and also the dispensary. And we also are going to be getting 3% of the sales tax revenue from the dispensary as well. So all this adds up to quite a bit for our little town and will help us out with keeping our tax rate down.
Was it your suggestion that they open the retail there? Or
No,
towns?
they came to us and that's what they decided to do. So of course we wanted to jump on it. The other thing is, at the time, Vermont and New Hampshire have not had approved any recreational retail sales in their states, but now Vermont has. So I think with that happening, the potential, and I did read through the email that went out earlier today about the marketing and the how it's going to probably meet its threshold and may already have. And so I think from talking with other people from Heirloom, I am aware that their plan is if they increase production, they can stay competitive.
Yeah, you're referencing a report that was done by the son of an abutter to the property where in Greenfield where someone wanted to bring in a grow. I'm not sure if that's still proceeding. Maybe Danny, would you be willing to share the spreadsheet? This was done by I'm gonna get the name wrong. Greg. No, not Greg. Oh gosh.
You want me to share what we were practicing earlier?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, we can just talk about what we're seeing.
Where did I put it? Here it is. Okay, hold on. I get too many screens.
So this is actually a good overview of the business. About 40% of it's in buds, 15% in pre-rolls, 21% in vape, edibles is 14%, concentrate 6%. So and shake and trim, I don't know who buys that stuff. Anyway, does this look about right, Alex?
I would say it does, and I actually really appreciated that report and you forwarding it to me because I think it tells a pretty accurate story, but I think there will be some companies that are winners and some that are losers. So I don't think it's all a grim picture, but I would say that's generally correct. And it pulls from a lot of state data, particularly on the price per gram, price per ounce, that I think carries a lot of insight.
Let's go back up to the grim figures. If you want to go back up to the top of here we go. He sort of frames this in dire terms that that the market has matured, saturated, and why don't you keep scrolling? We're not going to read the words. I just want to look at the pictures. here's so legal marijuana sales have flattened, he's saying, and you can sort of see this with the bars. Next one. This is month by month, I believe, sales for adult use. The orange line is what's got him upset. That's the rate of growth. So it was growing very quickly, but now that it's leveled off, the rate of growth goes down. That doesn't mean that there isn't money to be made, but that the easy pickings or the low hanging fruit have probably been picked. Maybe that's the wrong metaphor.
So
Next
wait,
yeah,
can
go
I
ahead.
ask a question about this? So, oh, I see. So this is all blank because this was the shutdowns.
Yeah, they were shut down for COVID, and so you can't do the comparison
And so
a year
did
later.
he do a analysis of these numbers and whether or not they are statistically significant, or are we just looking at bar graphs for trends?
This well, this is from the Cannabis Control Commission, so this is as definitive as we can get in Massachusetts. And what he's showing is month over month, comparing year over year. So
I see what it's showing, but I don't know if we can draw conclusions as like lay people who don't run statistical analysis on this per se.
Well, you can, if you look at the top of it across the last year, you can see that it's kind of flattish. That's his main point.
Okay. All right.
May I?
Yeah,
Counselor
sure.
Elmer?
Yes.
I read a couple of different studies also, and I think the profit margins have decreased, definitely decreased, but it said the sales were steady. That,
Yes.
the sales were pretty steady. It's just that there's a lot of plant growth out there. And I have a question that for anyone, Vermont and New Hampshire, what is their legislation on cultivation?
You're asking about, do they allow outdoor growth and indoor growth?
Outdoor and indoor.
And how they define it is what you're concerned
Right.
with.
Does anybody know?
I don't.
No, I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, me neither. I'm not sure.
All right. These green lines are showing the price of bud going down by about a third. And Ginny, just your is there one more slide? Danny, your observation that it's steady, that is the point, that the growth has ceased and now we have a steady state. So one of the reasons that the price is going down is that the supply is going up. And in the next slide, he's showing that most of that growth in supply is coming from outdoor growth, which is less profitable because so far no outdoor growth in Massachusetts has been allowed for sale as bud. And all you can do with it is squeeze it down and make oil or edibles out of it. Have I got that right, Alex?
Yeah, that's correct. If it can pass testing for microbials, I believe it is allowed to be sold as bud or pre-rolls, but obviously it's very challenging to meet the state's requirements if you're growing outdoors. And just to an earlier point, briefly, the price coming down has done something interesting to the units sold. So the quantity that's being purchased, it's arriving at, I would say, an equilibrium where we've noticed a lot more people that may be attracted from purchasing black market into the legal space because it's more so competing with that. So I think there is a little bit of an invisible tail that would show to some extent volumes of cannabis sold either stagnant or in slight growth as a result of the price compression. Just wanted to kind of throw that in there.
Okay. I think we can probably close the sharing. Are we done with the shares? Have we? Yeah.
May I?
Yes, please, Jenny.
I just wanted to say, while we were talking, I did look, which is a hopeful thing for, Bernardston or Greenfield, New Hampshire, depending on how you look at it. New Hampshire voted down a bill to make it legal, the cultivation, and Vermont said that cultivators can only grow 98 plants. So
That's a pretty, that's a
Although
pretty
they'll be
small
selling
number.
it, that they would be selling, you're allowed to sell recreational marijuana, but you can only cultivate up to 98 plants.
Okay, anybody have any other questions before I start asking more?
I have a couple questions that is back to revenue questions.
Mhm.
And this is just like my not knowing the process in Greenfield and for Franklin County, but my understanding is that there's like a local tax option that, so in Greenfield or in Bernardston, I'm wondering what does that like 3% or 3 point whatever percent go towards?
Danny, are you raising your hand because you know all about?
We haven't really, go
Go
ahead, Dan.
ahead. Bernstein,
No,
go ahead
you
first.
go ahead, because I don't have an answer for that, really.
Okay. So we have designated our, and they, Liz Gilman did a presentation on this last year. We should pull that thing out again for counselors. It goes towards something called OPEP. It's like the other, I'm not saying this right because I'm not a finance person, but it's the money that goes towards part of the retiree fringe benefits. And it's this huge thing. And so we're creating a stabilization account for that with the marijuana money because that it was going to be a reliable source for that. Now, I think, now, Eric, you know better than me, I think. Don't we have two different 3% sources? One comes from the state and then one comes directly from our cannabis distributors.
Yeah, 3% of gross sales comes directly from us, from the entities doing the marijuana production or cultivation. And of course, the state taxes it heavily. But we don't get anything from the state that I'm aware of unless I'm not in part of that process.
Can I ask a question about this? The 3% comes from retail sales.
Right.
What I can't figure out is what comes from cultivation.
It'll also be percentage of sales. So they have to
Correct.
sell and or process and then sell. So it's the same thing. So it would be different pricing, but it's still a 3% tax. And then as Mr. Abrams said from Bernardston, Greenfield also has a community host agreement fee that we get paid by the company that does sunset and or change over time.
And that fee is negotiated when you sign the host agreement. And it
Correct.
might be a certain number of thousands of dollars per year with some kind of kicker that's a percentage.
It is a one price that we negotiate with them to either be paid up front or paid over the 5 years. Is that right, Eric?
The impact fee is what we call it, is $15,000 when you first do a host community agreement, and it's paid up front. And I should point out, though, the new law that has to do with host community agreements has now changed that. So communities were charging impact fees, and when they had zero impacts in the communities from the facilities. So now the state has new regulations that cap it at 3%. You can have an impact fee and you can have a certain percentage of sales tax, but it all cannot exceed 3%. Right now, we're doing impact fees and 3%. So now we need to, our attorney's looking at our agreement, and we will have to amend it, revise it to meet the new law.
Right.
And can I ask another question?
Yes.
So that community impact fee, is there stipulations on what that can be used for? Is it only related to impacts from marijuana cultivation and sales, or it's like anything that the
It went into the
community?
general fund. Yeah.
In the general fund, it can be used for anything in
fund.
Greenfield.
Okay, I have one more question too.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No,
So is in Bernardston, I know that there was some agreement around where money would be placed back, like from from marijuana sales as a whole in Massachusetts into philanthropic investment, but the philanthropic investment that's happening in Bernardston, is that going directly back into the community in Bernardston, or is it being funneled through the state into the philanthropic investment that's chosen by the commission?
Who can answer that?
I can answer for Greenfield.
Yeah, yeah. The philanthropy that the Heirloom Collective has done has been, they've donated to, let's say, the school PTO committee, or I think the police department, I'm not sure. They've made donations each year to a couple of different, 2 or 3 different entities in town to help them out.
Right.
But this-
In,
that-
in Greenfield, similarly, we have one active cannabis dispensary, and they donate and work out agreements directly with the nonprofit or social service agencies to make the donations. I don't have the list. There are some rules from the CCC about them. They're not allowed to kind of, advertise who they donate to.
Right.
But I know they do a significant amount.
Is that all part of the so-called community impact payment?
I don't believe so. See, I really don't know. I'm just
No, I
from the
think that's just
planning board,
something
so I don't
separate.
make those decisions, and I don't know a lot about the financial end of what the agreements were
Does-
either.
Does Chris Tilley know? Is she the other person?
Sarah.
from-
Actually, that is Sarah.
So I'm Sarah LaValle, that's my husband's name. I
okay,
can't
sorry.
figure out how to change it. But I was prepared mostly just to talk about permitting and zoning, but the details of the host community agreement would be better addressed to the select board.
Correct.
All right.
And I do believe, just to add this in, I believe the philanthropic efforts were not explicitly included. I think it was maybe more of an intent. To
Yeah,
my memory.
I think so too.
Well, this is what puzzles me, is that we've heard many times from opponents of the cannabis cultivators that the 3% isn't really there. Is that it's to offset community impact, to offset cost to the community, but if there are no costs, then there's no 3%. You're
That's
not
not accurate,
that's not what
no.
you're saying. Can you
So the
explain it?
community impact fee, which Eric said, the new legislation is changing that. The 3% is still the 3%.
Do we get 6% if it's retail?
No, we get 3%.
Okay, so it's a flat 3%, whether it's grown, whether it's sold, whatever. Okay, another point that's been raised about what the town gets out of this is that a lot of marijuana is being grown in what used to be cornfields, and that the revenue from a cornfield is actually relatively small compared to the revenue from a marijuana grow. Yet it's being taxed as if it's a cornfield. Is that correct? Eric, do you want to handle that?
I would say that if a marijuana establishment being indoor or outdoor cultivation was approved by the zoning board of appeals, and the next time the assessors do an assessment, the assessed value would be different than it is today.
So that it would take time, there would be a delay in terms of the town seeing the increased value of the land. It would have to wait for the next assessment. Is that right?
I'm saying that the property would be definitely assessed differently with an approved marijuana cultivation facility on it.
And
That
we
would be true if any business changed on that property, though. So if it went
Correct.
from a cornfield to a store, a cornfield to a housing, it would wait until, well, maybe not to housing because they build the houses, but when it changes hands like that, there is often a slight delay, much to all of our concern that it doesn't always catch up with the reassessment.
Ginny's had her hand up for a while. Counselor DeSora.
I actually went in and spoke with our new assessor about this because someone had brought up the taxation of the APR land, and that I just wanted to point out that, yes, I agree with everything that everyone just said, except as far as it affects APR land, they actually know it's a problem in the state, but currently what he said was, they will continue to tax them at a lower rate because it's in the APR.
APR, for those who aren't familiar with these initials, is it's been set aside for agriculture, and then and there are rules governing that, which raises an interesting conundrum for the Factory Hollow, proposed Factory Hollow grow, because it's zoned industrial, but it's APR land. So which takes precedence? That has yet to be sorted out. Let me ask you, Alex, about odor control. We've got language coming down in proposed ordinances that would set pretty strict rules about whether a person with normal smell, I guess someone who hasn't had COVID, can smell it from within 500 feet or the border of the property. We've had different language proposed. When I visited your facility, I didn't smell anything. Would you pass the smell test, as it were?
I believe we would. Yeah, we deploy quite a bit of carbon filtration for all exhaust air that leaves the building. So, carbon filtration takes care of most. I've never caught an odor unless I was 5 or 10 feet away from the building if the wind is in a particular direction. So.
Well, what if it were, one of the proposals was they'd grow marijuana in what they called an indoor facility, but it would be a hoop house. In your experience, can hoop house grows, can the odor be controlled in those?
I think it can. If you use the proper technology and you're exhausting obviously in a hoop house heats up very quickly, so you have to evacuate a lot of air at once. I think wind pattern is a strange thing to mention, but it definitely would potentially affect it. But I think with the proper technology, you could deploy odor control as long as the hoop house itself was sealed and wherever they were exhausting the air was either carbon filtered. You can use ozone. There's some other solutions out there as well.
Have you ever seen a hoop house facility that had proper odor control?
The one that I have seen is what they would term as a green door facility, which is a greenhouse. So I guess when you say hoop house, I assume like traditional, just standard, lower budget type operation, but with somebody who's actually building what I would call a permanent structure that is a greenhouse. I have observed proper odor filtration. Absolutely.
I'm running out of questions. Derek, go ahead, Ginny, go.
So that we have somebody from the planning or zoning board from Bernardston there. What have you done in Bernardston, as long as she's here, Sarah, your zoning regulations on marijuana cultivation? Do you have indoor and outdoor? And can you tell us a little bit about how yours is regulated?
So Chris can add to it too, but we worked with Franklin Regional Council of Governments to update the zoning bylaws to include some of the recent changes that were allowed. So delivery is something that's allowed in Bernardston. I would have to look, but I do believe outdoor is allowed, but we've never had an application or any interest for outdoor. So we permitted the same way that a lot of other uses in town are permitted, and haven't had any issues to date.
I heard a rumor that outdoor was prohibited in Bernardston, but I guess that's not the case, as far as you know.
I'm not even sure if it's specified in the zoning bylaw. I'd have to look.
Give me a couple minutes. I will check.
Alex, what's on the table here is a proposal to define an indoor grow as sort of as you have it, with a floor, with walls, with bolts, and an industry standard odor control system. Do you have any advice for Greenfield?
I guess, and speaking just kind of purely from opinion, I think of just in my internal association, outdoor meaning no barrier to the outside, but I can see the concern of like, if you just put up a ovular roof and both sides are open, does that make it outdoor? Then it's kind of seems more like a tented grow. But I have seen, depending on the technology, the operation, the way people do it, something that I would classify as quote unquote indoor, that some people might look at and think of as a greenhouse, where it's got, essentially a glass ceiling. It has, cold walls, but actually established walls, and is essentially encapsulated to the outside for all intents and purposes, but deploys greenhouse technology to use the sun. So it's a complex territory for sure. I can understand the complexity of defining it. But I just in my own head think of it as something that is barriered to the outside.
Ginny, you've drafted language here. Did you have any questions for our experts?
So I do. The glass ceiling, the glass ceiling will eliminate a lot of the electrical use. This is for, I guess, anyone who knows in cultivation, especially.
Sure, absolutely. So some of the and where I have seen it go in Washington and other more developed states is they do that green door style, which may actually have supplemental lighting inside to enhance the plant's overall robust growth, but it cuts the electrical footprint down very, very much. Lighting is, as probably the largest impact. Probably second is HVAC, temperature and environmental control. So it definitely cuts the lighting bill. And as long as your facility is designed to be able to evacuate enough air and overall control its environment, you can get really great results with that and definitely reduce the electric footprint hugely.
Follow up, if I may.
Sure.
How about water usage? We've heard many things about water usage. We just experienced a terrible drought, not tonight, but could you tell us a little bit about the water usage?
Yeah, so I don't have the exact figures, but I can say depending on the overall style of cultivation and whether they are reclaiming any effluent water and reintegrating that into their cultivation, which would be a circulating system where the runoff from any cultivation would actually be recollected and potentially reused. I would say, and I guess I'll defer to Berniston, I don't know if our water usage has been negatively burdensome. But I can understand the concern, certainly. So I think it would probably have to do with the, overall professionalism and design of the facility, that they're not just wasting water and running off things, that they're more so looking to saturate the soil and minimize runoff, which if you're a good cultivator, that's your goal as well. So I guess would defer to Berniston, but I don't know that it's been negatively impactful in this case.
I have not heard anything from the water department. Of course, they're a water district, so I don't have access to those records. I mean, I would if I wanted to, but I haven't requested them.
And just
Go ahead.
Alex, you do reclaim the water there at Heirloom, isn't that correct?
Yes, we do reuse effluent, and it's kind of a hybrid setup, but yeah, and from a company standpoint, when you're dosing your nutrients into the water, it is actually a very positive thing to the bottom line to be reusing that water. So I would hope that a good company would seek efficiency like that.
And just to follow up on the indoor versus outdoor, Berniston zoning doesn't differentiate between the two. It's limited by the maximum size of the buildings. So anywhere in Berniston where indoor cultivation is allowed by zoning district, outdoor cultivation would be allowed as well.
Okay. So you're about to up your, Alex, you're about to up your output by more than doubling it, right? You're going to
quite a bit, yes, quite a bit.
And Berniston, do you expect to see your tax revenues increase accordingly?
I hope so.
I wish we could get some numbers. Alex, without divulging any company secrets, are we talking about gross revenue of tens of millions of dollars a year?
I think, and this is where I would guess be specific in terms of how much you choose to wholesale versus retail. So I'll say it's a substantial quantity, but at the same time, the cost side of this business is very heavy. It's very expensive to run these facilities, as you all know. So from a profitability standpoint, we're doing well, but I would put it next to a lot of other production businesses in that your success is really your ability to limit costs and maximize price. So I think in this new facility, a lot of the product that we grow, and this is a positive thing, will be wholesaled as well as retailed through our two facilities that are retail. But it's a significant amount. You're not far off. But at the same time, like I said, managing your balance sheet, your costs, and maintaining profitability, that's where the skill comes in, I would say.
I see you, Marianne. I just have one follow-up for Alex. But how many people do you employ or will you employ when you have your full facility going and your retail?
Yeah, so right now, I believe with our new retail employees we just hired for Bernardston, we are just about to cross into triple digits. I think we're in the 90s. I think as it pertains to the new site, hopefully we'll be very efficient, but we want to have that positive economic benefit of employment. So and this is a guess, speculation, because I think we're currently trying to assess what that looks like. It's probably all in, admin and everything, probably in the, I'd say 150 to 180 range is probably where it'll actually end up.
Okay, Marianne.
Yeah, I have two questions. So one, I'm wondering, what are the tier limits in Bernardston? Because you're saying it's the same for indoor and outdoor. Do you guys have a tier limit?
We do not.
Okay.
No. I
And then-
can tell you, this, I did get from our tax collector what they have been paying for property taxes for the last several years. And it's been averaging around $80,000 a year on the current facility. That doesn't include the dispensary that they just built and the addition that they're putting on.
Do you have a follow-up, Marianne?
Yeah, it's a totally separate question, but Alex, when you were talking about jobs, I'm wondering, are those positions, are they like full-time benefited living wage positions, or are they part-time, or how does that work for your employees?
It's a bit of hybrid, depending on the individual employee. But I would say our goal is to create those full-time living wage positions. Primarily, it's great for us too, because we like that consistency and those people committing to that. But naturally, you have a lot of people that may be students, or they may have another job where you'll end up offering part-time as well. So I don't know the exact breakdown, but I know that our goal is generally towards full-time positions.
And for those full-time positions, you guys offer like health insurance and benefits to your employees, or?
We do. We have, I believe it's health, dental, and vision benefits currently. No 401k for obvious reasons. The feds are still a little bit wrapped up in that. So
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Danny, you had your hand up, I think, before Derek.
Yeah, super fast question. What is the size, Alex, that you guys are expanding to or recently expanded to?
Yeah, so I believe our facility that we built, that is the retail expansion, that is, I believe, 4,500 square feet. I'm kind of guesstimating there. It's split in half. Half of it is corporate offices and a conference room. The other half is the retail facility. And I think the overall footprint of expansion for our cultivation side will be 38 to 40,000 square feet, I think. And obviously only a portion of that will be active canopy, which I believe will come to 32 to 34,000 active canopy. But again, I'm drawing from memory there. I know, I believe it's public record somewhere. So
yeah, I just want to know approximately to understand how it relates to what everybody's talking about in Greenfield.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. And Derek, you had a question.
Yes, so we talked about water usage, and my other question would be in regards to the opposite end of that. So sewer burden, right? So I know that you're reusing in your water. I know that there's probably nutrients in your water, nitrogen or whatever it may be. But I guess my question is, do you discharge directly to city sewer? If so, is there any is there any water quality testing required before discharging? I don't know if you use any, you know, chemicals in your process or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and we so I guess I'll defer one piece of that because I don't know the exact specifics, so I won't speak on it. I believe Bernstein may be able to speak on those details. But in terms of the general disposal of marijuana waste, you know, that the physical waste is always composted 50-50 with inert material. And then any of the water, there are no compounds that we're using that would present a hazard. Should they be something in the extraction lab, that's disposed of separately. So I don't know the exact specifics though, in terms of whether it is going to the sewer and what the water quality testing requirements are, but I know that was all explicitly ironed out.
We actually do not have a public sewer system in Bernardston, so they have their own septic that it goes into.
Which goes into the ground, right? So just wondering how that's handled water quality wise. That's my concern is, you know, if there's anything in the discharge water, and even if it is on a septic, it's still being deposited into the earth. And, you know, this is fairly new around the state, so I don't know what kind of regulations. I guess I have to do some homework on my end.
They do have a holding pond or where runoff and whatnot will go into. And of course, they have a huge leach field where it goes into as well.
And just to add a little bit, there are very, very strict regulations within the industry as to what are approved, you know, chemicals and or compounds that you can use, even down to the nutrients and their derived sources. So that is a very strict area that we adhere to that I would say limits the risks, any risks around ground contamination.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, I see that Doug Stotts, who created that business report on the marijuana business, is here, and he wanted me to ask you, Alex, a few questions. Let me see if I can pull them up. Yeah, you've answered one. You do see the same picture for overall sales, and that you see that the growth has slowed down. You are vertically integrated. You asked about that. How do you view outdoor growers as competitors or suppliers? Do they think outdoor grows are fine for oil, but will never meet the CCC quality for buds and pre-roll? And how do you feel about lower capital costs and operating costs, but with greater community impact for outdoor grows versus what they've done in Bernardston? That I kind of garbled his question, but he's asking you, maybe one way to put it, would you go into the outdoor grow business if you had an opportunity?
I think, yeah, and that was a very well-worded question. I think with outdoor, it's not that we worry about them as a competitive advantage as it pertains to bud. I do know that there are a couple cultivators outdoors that are doing pre-rolls and finished buds. So I do know that, I believe one of them is called Coastal Cultivars, I believe it is. They're out in the eastern part of the state. It is a challenge to succeed at that, but naturally you will derive a lower retail value to that. So there is a pretty distinct quality line between outdoor quality and indoor quality. I think their primary competitive advantage is in the biomass side of things. So selling biomass to extractors for the purpose of distillation or the production of concentrates. That is where my understanding is they're making a lot of their revenue. In terms of the fresh frozen material, which is a whole new kind of genre of concentrates, where you actually flash freeze the material and then extract it. It produces a really nice byproduct. I've seen a lot of that happening in the state with outdoor grows. I wouldn't say we worry about them as direct competition in buds, but as supporting the biomass demand, definitely there. Positive impact, I think you weigh that a few different ways. I would imagine that they have a lower cost footprint, but also from a dollars per gram standpoint would definitely derive less revenue. If you talk about, selling a pound of trim for example, for extraction on the wholesale market. I've heard prices for outdoor trim anywhere from 150 to 200 and 250 versus indoor trim, which will typically go for 300 to 500. So there is a distinction there.
Ginny, could you take over for a minute? I have to make what I call a bio break. I'll be right back. We're going to switch, I think, to the mayor's proposal. Well, anyway, if there are any more questions on marijuana, could you direct them through Ginny, and I'll be back in 2 minutes.
Okay. And Danny, you can help me if you see anybody's hand up that I'm missing, okay?
I will scan the screen.
Oh, thank you so much. I had
thank our
another,
neighbors in Berniston and our business people in
Yes.
Berniston for coming to this meeting. Good job, Phil, getting these guys here.
that was, absolutely, thank you all so much.
You're welcome.
For sure.
I have a question for the clerk before, and then you're the city clerk, is that correct? Could you talk about, did you say it was $80,000 per year? Or was
Roughly, it fluctuates. It's an average
Okay, on their property taxes?
on their property taxes.
Okay. All right, and we, so far, Danny, we have how many? We have one cultivate, we have one?
One operating business in Greenfield, one
Yes.
operational cannabis business.
And
Do we know what the taxes are from that one? Like, what's our revenue from that?
I don't know off the top of my head. I could get it.
It's
I
like
I'll get that
seven-
for you.
I'm back.
7,000.
You would want to know if you're comparing apples to apples, you may want to know the property taxes on that, which I can look up right now, but.
It's 292, it's taxed, assessed for 292,000, which would make it about
Yeah, but they have other-
6,900.
My memory, I'm back, by the way. My memory of the report that we got from the city was that we got about $250,000 the first year and another $250,000 the second year. So about $500,000 of revenue from retail.
I think it's more than that, but
More
are
than
you
that?
talking about assessment on the property,
No,
Jenny,
no,
or are you
I'm-
talking about?
I was talking about property taxes, personally.
I changed the subject. I was talking about the 3%.
I can tell you what that is if you just give me a sec.
Okay.
Both. Give me a sec.
And that's just that's a dispensary, not a cultivator.
It is a dispensary.
Okay.
Well, I know that there are 2 other dispensaries close to opening. One at the
Close
old,
to opening, but they're still not open.
yeah, and there is a grow also going on at Arch Street, right?
I don't think they're operating yet. No, they're not there yet.
Right, but they're putting the money into the.
We have multiple businesses in multiple phases of potentially opening, but none of them have opened yet. I think the next closest to opening is another dispensary, and then the Arch Place LLC, but they're not imminent, but they're pretty close. So the only one we're getting tax revenue from right now is.
I can tell you, Danny, that they're working 7 days a week.
Yeah, they're still doing their work.
Yeah.
To get the building ready.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, they're not
they're right behind me and they're working 7 days a week.
so
All
they're
right.
not producing cannabis yet, is what I mean.
That's correct.
But give me a couple minutes and I'll look up both those numbers for you guys.
Okay, I'll report that I've talked to some other people in the business who are concerned about retail saturation, and there are some towns. I know that with our one retail shop, it's pretty much nonstop business there. There are some towns where there's so many retail shops that they're getting 2 or 3 people a day, and that's not sustainable. So there is a limit to how many shops a town can handle, and there's probably a limit to how much marijuana the state can consume. We're not there, but it's getting closer. Well, Dan, I'm ready. Is there no more questions about marijuana? Oh, yeah, Danny, go ahead.
Fiscal 22, yeah, you were right. 208,000 for the local option 3% tax. 292 is projected for fiscal 23. That's from the one establishment. And then the one thing I didn't look up is the actual tax assessment. Ginny, you said you thought you knew it?
They're assessed for 292,000, which would
Feels
be
low.
roughly, yes, because it sold for 2 million. And had 2 million worth of renovations put into it. So the property taxes that we get from that are about $6,900.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there are no more questions about marijuana at this meeting, we should let our Berniston guests go, and then we can talk about the mayor's proposal for rezoning the French King Highway. Are we done? Can we say goodbye? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're
Thank you so
welcome.
much.
Love your
Learned
work, Alex.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care, everybody. It was a pleasure.
Bye-bye. Okay, moving on to the mayor's proposal. Danny, do you want to summarize it quickly? Because I know that Derek has some questions and I have the same question.
Yes, I can. I have, your packet, and I was not present at, but I've seen her presentation that she gave to the planning board, and I know about the background on this project. This is essentially a proposal to rezone an area so that we can expand the industrial park near the industrial park, but not in the exact location where we are before. MJ's here, actually. I think I should turn it over to MJ. She's the expert in this. Or Eric. You guys get the paper, rock, scissors. Uh-oh.
That's me.
MJ,
Sorry.
there, we were getting some feedback. But while MJ's getting her sound together, I was at that meeting and I think I can summarize it pretty quickly.
Yeah, please do.
What was zoned as general commercial as part of a deal to get the library vote, because there are people in the industrial park who are running out of space and would like to expand, they've asked specifically, could we zone that as planned industrial, which is what the industrial park is zoned as. Ginny raised some good questions about why not leave it the way it is, because you could be allowed to do industrial in there. You could do all kinds of stuff with general commercial. The mayor's point was she wants to market this to industry. And that it makes a pretty clear statement when we say, okay, we're taking this land that was general commercial and now we're going to zone it for planned industrial, and our doors are open and you're invited in. And I can see that point. Derek had some questions, I remember, about why he wants to open up Greenfield for business too, but he's saying, well, why not allow other things? And one possible kind of occupant that came up during the mayor's presentation was, well, maybe people would want a place to eat. There might be banking needs. Now, restaurants are specifically excluded from planned industrial. So Derek kind of has a point there.
Yep. And I thought that there's two options in order to, so the proposed zone options are to create planned industrial zone or create a new industrial zone designation, the IC, industrial with some selected commercial. So what that would do is allow both things to happen. So you could have a light industrial expansion of the industrial park and as well have it available for restaurants, things like that, that could also benefit the workers there as well as people traveling through. So that both of those would accomplish, I think, the goal. It does limit the amount of industrial options there, but if people want to keep the door open to multiple things, that's something that's an option.
Derek, give your hand up.
Yes, I think that's the route we want to go. I think really when you look at it, we should sit down and take the time to do this right. And I think the way to do that is to identify what uses we would find acceptable and come up with a new use chart for that zone that says, okay, we're going to allow restaurants, we're going to allow banking, we're going to allow industrial use up to X amount of square feet without a special permit, right? Because we also want to be careful there, because you also don't want, that meets certain standards like light pollution standards, or if they're going to be working 24/7, that might require a special permit. I think we want to take the time to really think about this and do the right thing, so we don't get caught in a conundrum later on where we open the doors and it's kind of like Pandora's box and we're regretting it later on.
Yeah, and I agree. So I did talk, despite fumbling over the beginning of this earlier, I didn't know I was going to talk so much about cannabis. So I was confused, but I talked to the mayor and I said, knowing she couldn't come to this meeting because she would be the best one to propose this. And I said, what are the takeaways? And that was the thing she did focus on. She's like, there is a concern that we don't want to limit the use too much, even though initially her hope was, helping to make this an expansion of the industrial park. But she said, we're all open to that. Like, that's an option, an opportunity to do it right, do it with restaurants, add some, options for other things there.
Yeah.
Select commercial.
I'd like, another town, I know it's in New Hampshire, but Winchester, New Hampshire, they just did Stone Mountain Business Park, right? And they don't have anybody in there yet, but they repaved the road. They brought in the utilities. They made it very attractive to businesses. And that was one of the things where they're allowing multi-use. You could have, just a corporate business center, or you could have a manufacturer down the road from that corporate business center. So it just scared me when we said we're going to switch to one type of industry, because, you're trying to attract 6 or 7 businesses to come to Greenfield that are restricted to certain uses, when you might be able to put in, a headquarter office for, some corporate facility or different things. Right. And it just made me nervous to just rush into something. I just wanted to see it more planned out and have more.
Yeah. Did you guys get a copy of the slide deck that the mayor shared at the planning board?
I watched it. I was there.
Yeah, I don't think that was in it. All we got was a map, I think, in.
That's correct.
I have a question about during the discussion, there was some talk about, well, you could put restaurants across the street. That's chill zone general commercial. I think that concerned me, because one of the beauties of developing in the French King Highway space is that it's down under and kind of protected by a row of trees. And if you started opening up the other side, if you said, okay, let's put the McDonald's and the gas station on the other side, that kind of destroys whatever beauty that French King Highway had.
Sure. Yeah.
And
practically speaking, I mean, this area and what the area you're talking about right now has been zoned for that for some time. And we don't have restaurants clamoring to open there right now. But if we do this in conjunction with some planned, industry, advanced manufacturing that want to expand in the town, bringing in jobs and people, then we may see that kind of development. So I think that's where the impetus of this is that people want to expand their existing businesses. They want to bring in these good jobs and do better what they're already doing well. And that will draw it. Because like we said, that part of French King that we're speaking of, that was quote unquote the library deal. I mean, that's been a couple of years now. We haven't had anybody looking into, in a real way, development of restaurants or things like that there. Nobody's turning them away. They aren't coming. And across the street, as you said, pointed out, that has been zoned that way and available for some years. So this could attract that.
Yeah, I mean, with my planning, with my economic development hat on, I can see the money coming into the town and the jobs. With my sort of preservation of the natural look of that entry into Greenfield, I would hope that there's some rules about what can be put up there and what can't. And I guess that falls to the planning board and the planning department.
And there are. I know that we have got wetlands over there. There's some Native American areas that need to be avoided for industry, and Eric knows about some of that. That all obviously will be followed to the letter. And that's all part of that process. But right now, as it stands, and there are some options, like Derek said, right now where it stands, you could not put a manufacturing company's, second campus, for example, over in that area right now.
Derek, I think you beat Ginny to the punch. You have a question.
Yeah, I just had I guess the question is, does the city own any of that property, or is that all privately held right now?
Then it's all private property, correct? Yes.
And have we had any conversations with the property owners to see if they are open to that idea?
Yes. And yes.
Okay, thank you.
This
Danny,
isn't coming out of nowhere.
Danny, help me out. What's the name of the company that showed up at the mayor's meeting? Who's that guy who wants to move in?
Valley Steel Stamp?
Say it again.
Valley Steel Stamp, Steve
Valley Steel
Capshaw.
Right, and there's some talk that Beat Nozzle might also want to move in.
Valley Steel Stamp is looking at multiple different options for expanding his business in Greenfield or anywhere, but Greenfield first if he can.
Right, he's from Greenfield. He made a good case. Ginny, Derek, are you through there? Did you ask your question?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay, Ginny.
So I just wanted to bring up at the meeting, what came out actually was the lease agreement that Stop and Shop has. I just wanted to mention them until 2035. So what will stop, how will that work with if we make a new zone? Do you think that will have an effect on Ceruzzi wanting to break the lease if it's newly zoned as a combination?
Just a little history here. Stop and Shop, to keep a big box store from moving into that space, paid the owner.
Grocery store.
Grocery store.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Okay. So to keep out the competition, they've been paying him a lot of money every year, and he's got a lease that goes to 2035 and something like $1.5 million a year. So it's significant money. The Valley Steel Stamp guy apparently has talked to both the owner and to Stop and Shop, and they can see a way out of this. Probably paying off some percentage, not the full dollar value of the lease. Have I got that roughly right, Danny?
Yeah, so that's, obviously between them and one another, that lease deal. However, changing the zoning in this area would make it so it sort of ensures, so the concern there from Stop and Shop corporate is a competitor directly across the street. And so I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, either of these options of the zoning change would essentially make it impossible for a grocery store to go in anyway, which would then thus make the lease not necessary.
Correct. We would not allow retail in the new zone.
You're not going to allow any retail in the new zone.
That'd
The
be
new
the-
zone that you're creating would be no retail.
That's correct.
That was the first option, the actual on the table plan. Planned industrial.
Okay, and also that would be true of IC as well?
IC is advanced industrial and commercial. What's allowed in that? Industrial with some selected commercial. I think that's where you get your restaurant stuff. Is that correct?
Well, that zone doesn't exist yet. We would create
Right.
the zone, and it would have all those uses that we feel would be a good thing in that area would be added.
And it would not include retail,
Correct.
right?
Or grocery stores. I mean, I realize that grocery stores are retail, but
Yeah.
if you just eliminated that one use.
Yes, I agree with that, Jenny.
Is that
That's a mistake.
Honestly,
So
Is that a legal option? Do we know, Eric?
I think you are getting into legal trouble there if you're eliminating one particular use over a general category of retail. I'd have to research that, but I don't think that'd be legal.
Yeah, I think that was something we talked about early on in this process. And
Okay.
we were determined you can't just slice out a couple of things or one thing. Because as you can imagine, in a slew of situations where less generous government types might do it for other things, you know, prohibiting one use for one area versus a whole category.
So may I speak for a minute? So
Yes,
just so
please.
everyone knows, for that vacant land, Stop and Shop is paying Ceruzzi over $1 million a year in a lease until 2035. We're getting tax revenue of 900. It's being taxed at, I think, $970,000, which would bring us, probably what, 27, so about $20,000 a year.
Yeah.
And it's really between two business owners. And then we have another business owner or owners who are trying to come in and make their businesses grow.
A multi-million-dollar business.
And it would be to them to sort out how that lease gets settled.
Correct.
Someone's going to have to pay Ceruzzi, and someone's going to have to, and Stop and Shop's going to have to make a deal to get out of this. We've got the people. We don't have the mayor, but we have people who know how this works. So any councilors who have questions about this proposal, now's your chance. Eric?
Just want to put a plug into the planning board meeting this Thursday coming up, 6 p.m. at the John Zahn Community Center. One of the items on the agenda is to discuss this very proposal and start delving into the details of new zone and what potential uses would be in that zone. So we welcome all of you to join and give your input.
Okay, great. I think we're close to winding this down. Let me just look at the
I don't have a question, but Danny, could you forward us that presentation that you talked about earlier?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm going to send it to Phil to distribute. Is that all right, Phil?
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, we're not going to get to the parking and bike lane stuff on Main Street. One of these days, I'm going to invite the people who are for it and the people who are against it, and we'll let them thrash it out in front of us. Do we have any new business anybody would like to propose? Hearing none, do we have any old business? Okay, our next meeting is October 11th, 2022 at 6 p.m. via Zoom, unless otherwise posted. I would welcome a motion to adjourn.
Motion to
So
adjourn.
moved, disorder.
This was the most fun subcommittee I've had
Mail.
been on in a while.
Well, we like to keep everybody entertained. Okay, next time we'll make Berniston provide the weed. Okay, thank you very much. Take care. Closing the meeting.
Thank you.
14.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks all.
Okay.